Albrecht Dürer, The Feast of the Rosary, 1506 to 1507. Dürer, already a famous master in Germany, lived in Italy. He traveled to Venice, the artistic capital of the Renaissance. He wanted to adopt Italian techniques, but also to prove that Northern artists were in no way inferior to Southern ones. Now, he was an acknowledged master, capable of absorbing what resonated with him in the work of Southern artists and, in turn, sharing his own achievements. The popularity of Dürer's engravings in Italy was widely known, inspiring numerous imitations and even forgeries. In Venice in 1506, he created one of his most Italian paintings, The Feast of the Rosary. The composition of the work is clear and symmetrical, with individual parts harmoniously united into a whole. This painting, based on an allegorical subject, is populated with very real people. Next to the Virgin Mary, Dürer depicted Emperor Maximilian and Pope Julius II. Among the people waiting to receive rose wreaths placed on their heads, the artist included the Venetian Cardinal Grimani, the famous architect Hieronymus of Augsburg, and German merchants living in the Fondaco dei Tedeschi, German trading house in Venice, who were the patrons of the painting. The painting, The Feast of the Rosary, German Rosenkranzfest, Italian Festa del Rosario, was commissioned by the German community in Venice for the Church of San Bartolomeo. This was part of a tradition. German merchants and artisans living in Venice often commissioned art from their fellow countrymen. Dürer worked on it from the autumn of 1505 to the summer of 1506. According to legend, when the painting was finished, Giovanni Bellini, the leading Venetian artist of the time, exclaimed, "If this German were not such a great master, I would envy him." Technique and style, a synthesis of Northern and Italian Renaissance oil on poplar panel, 162 x 194.5 cm. Dürer used chiaroscuro and deep perspective, which was rare in German painting at the time. The figures are painted with a plasticity close to that of Italian masters, but the detailing, fabrics, faces reveals a Northern approach. The background features a mountainous landscape reminiscent of the Alps, possibly a nod to Dürer's homeland. Who is depicted in the painting, and what is the symbolism of the characters? At the center is the Virgin Mary with the Christ child, seated on a throne under a canopy. She is handing out rose wreaths, symbolizing prayers to two groups of people. On the left, clergy, led by Pope Julius II, recognizable by his portrait likeness. On the right, secular rulers, including Emperor Maximilian I, wearing a turban, a reference to his Eastern campaigns. His inclusion in the religious scene emphasized the connection between secular power and the Church. Other important figures: Saint Dominic, founder of the Dominican order, which promoted the Rosary. He holds a rosary. Angels hovering above the scene, some playing musical instruments. Dürer included a self-portrait on the right side of the painting, a figure in rich clothing holding a scroll with the inscription Albrecht Dürer, German, completed in 5 months, in Latin. This was a challenge. He emphasized that he had created a masterpiece faster than many Italian artists. Details and symbols in the painting. The painting is dedicated to the Confraternity of the Rosary, a religious group devoted to the Virgin Mary. The roses in the hands of the saints are not mere decoration. Each rose represents an Ave Maria prayer, and the wreath symbolizes the Rosary, a meditative prayer tool. The bird, possibly a goldfinch in Christ's hand, a symbol of the Passion. Garlands of flowers and fruit, a reference to Eden and spiritual fertility. The coat of arms on Mary's throne may relate to the German patrons. The painting's fate and copies: 1606, Emperor Rudolph II took the painting from Venice to Prague, paying an enormous sum. 1782, it was nearly sold at auction, but Prague's public protested. Today, the painting is housed in the National Gallery in Prague. Copies and influence: 16th century engravings spread the subject across Europe. In the 17th century, Rubens created his own version of the Feast of the Rosary inspired by Dürer. In Venice itself, local artists produced imitations. Interesting stories, payment dispute. Dürer was initially offered 110 ducats, but after completing the work, he demanded more. As the painting turned out to be grander than expected, a huge sum for the time. Missing fragment. The lower part of the panel was sawn off, possibly due to damage. Another intriguing detail. During the Dürer's Journeys exhibition at the National Gallery in London, experts noticed a carefully painted fly on an early copy of the Feast of the Rosary. Most visitors overlooked the insect, but once seen, it's impossible to ignore. The fly sits almost at the center of the composition, on the fabric covering the Virgin's lap, precisely between the Christ child and Emperor Maximilian I. Look closely, the fly is painted life-size. Since the figures in the painting are about half life-size, Dürer rendered the fly as if it had landed on the canvas itself. The copy displayed at the Dürer's Journeys exhibition is on loan from the Kunsthistorische Museum in Vienna. Dürer's original, not shown in London, dates to 1506 and was painted during his stay in Venice. The altarpiece was damaged either during its transport across the Alps to Prague a century later or during the 30 Years' War. In any case, it lost much of its painted surface over time. Since the 17th century, the panel has been restored multiple times and is now in Prague's National Gallery. The fly has long disappeared, either due to flaking or because restorers deemed it inappropriate. Alternatively, it may have been added to the copy later, but it is almost certain that Dürer himself painted the insect on the Virgin's knee. A poem written a year after the painting's completion refers to him as the painter of the bold fly. The copy of the altarpiece where the fly survives dates to around 1606 and was made directly from the original. The fact that the fly is placed almost equidistant between the Christ child's foot and the emperor's folded hands might seem blasphemous. So why is it there? Susan Foister, the National Gallery's curator, offers two possible explanations: as a symbol of mortality or evil, or as a demonstration of the artist's skill. Given Dürer's undeniable talent and self-confidence, the fly could well have been a showcase of his brushwork. However, on a church altarpiece, the insect would only be visible up close, so most worshippers would not have noticed it. On the other hand, Dürer placed the fly between Christ and the emperor. This could symbolize mortality, alluding to Christ's future crucifixion. But this interpretation is complicated by the fact that flies are unpleasant creatures, often associated with evil. One might speculate that the Christ child is about to crush the insect with his foot, symbolizing the triumph over evil. Ultimately, even after 5 centuries, Dürer's hyper-realistic fly remains a mystery. What do you think? Write in the comments. The Feast of the Rosary is Dürer's manifesto, where he combined German precision with Italian harmony. The painting is not only a religious image but also a political statement, uniting church and empire while asserting the pride of German art. If you want to learn more about famous and lesser-known artists and their works, subscribe to the channel.